y'all, my name is Serena and this is Serena's Art Adventures. Welcome to the channel. Today I wanted to test 4 different yarns for washcloths. I've heard a lot of people say to use cotton yarn for washcloths, and I'm not sure which cotton yarn is the best cotton yarn for washcloths, so I put 4 of them to the test today, and I'm sure I will try this again, but today we are going with 3 different ones from Premier and 1 from Walmart. These are all yarns that I bought online and had delivered to me, so these are accessible for everybody. The first yarn is this puzzle cotton yarn. It's a 57% acrylic, 43% cotton yarn, and I did make this washcloth from this Premier puzzle yarn. Then we are going to test the Premier home cotton yarn. This yarn, I made this washcloth right here. And then the last one from Premier that we are testing is the Premier Cotton Sprout Worsted Multis. This is the dishcloth that I made with this yarn. And then we are going to test the Peaches and Cream Cone from Walmart. I made this pattern from this one. This one is a little bit more of a textured pattern than the others, so I really do like this pattern. I did use a pattern book, and for the most part, all of these are from the pattern book, with the exception of this one. I just did the linen stitch on this one. I'll get more into the reason why I did this later on as we talk about the actual different yarns, the positives, the negatives of all of these different yarns, and I will give you my full rating out of 10 on all of these different yarns. Since we are testing these as washcloths, I'm going to go ahead and do an absorbency test on all of these as well, so feel free to stay tuned for my overall reaction on all of these yarns. But let's go ahead and get right into it.
All of these are weight 4 yarns, so we are going to be using a 5.5mm hook. I have this Furls crochet hook that I'm going to be using for the majority of these today. We are going to go ahead and start with this Cotton Sprout worsted weight yarn from Premier. This is 100% cotton and machine washable. It is $4.99 per skein with 153 yards in each skein, making this 31 cents per yard. This yarn is very soft to the touch. So while you are working with the yarn, it is super soft to work with. It is not rough on my hands at all. The yarn is still very strong and does not break when pulling on it like some polyester and acrylic yarns will do. It is 100% cotton, and as you can see in this clip, the stitch definition is a 10 out of 10. I personally love the color change. I like that it is not a smooth transition. It is unique and it adds the feeling of using variegated yarn, which is some of my favorite colorways to use. But I did just kind of want to point out that this yarn does have a little bit of weird color transitions, as you can see in this swatch that I'm working up for you. It does go, when it's changing from like yellow to blue, for example, from yellow to blue and then like back to yellow and then to blue again. So you can kind of see that in the yellow. It happens again when it's going from blue to green, and then again when it's going from green to blue, as you can see here in this example. I really do like this yarn. It is easy to frog, and I would give it an overall rating of a 9 out of 10. It is great cotton. It is almost perfect, but while using a resin hook, it did split on me a couple of times, and I had to frog back because it looks kind of silly after it splits. If it didn't split very much, then I definitely would have given this yarn a 10 out of 10. I absolutely love this yarn. However, we still have the absorbency test to do, which we will go ahead and get into after I talk about working with the next couple of yarns. I could not wait to get my hands on this Premier puzzle cotton yarn, so we are going to go ahead and review this one next. As you can see, it's 57% acrylic and 43% cotton. It is a very soft and smooth yarn. and it is $8.99 per skein with 349 yards, making it 39 cents per yard. I highly recommend this yarn for wearables. It did frog fairly well, and while you're working with this yarn, it is my favorite yarn of all four of these because of the acrylic. It adds a little bit of stretchiness, making it very easy on your hands to crochet with. I absolutely love the color transitions. I think that this yarn is great for wearables because the acrylic adds some softness and some stretchiness to the cotton, and the cotton adds some strength to the acrylic yarn. So I hope to pick this up again in the future. It will probably be one of my favorite yarns to make wearables with. I absolutely love the colorway, but the yarn on the website is no longer available, so hopefully they have more colorways coming soon, but this particular color, unfortunately, is not showing as available right now on their website. I have to give this a 9 out of 10 because I did have a knot very early on in the crochet process, and that always is a little bit of a letdown to me when I have a premier or premium yarn. I really don't like to see the little knots in the project. Since I was just working up a dishcloth, I didn't do anything about the knot. I just went ahead and kept it because overall for this project, I don't think it's going to make a big difference. Next up, we have the Premier Home Cotton Yarn. It is using 100% recycled cotton, but only 85% of the yarn is cotton, and the remainder of the percentage of the yarn is polyester. It is $5 for a bag of 3, with each skein having 96 yards in the skein. That would make it 57 cents per yard. It is machine washable, and when I was frogging it, I did get a little bit of a knot in it, so it's not the best at frogging compared to the other yarns. I definitely didn't enjoy the crochet experience as much as the other two yarns that we've already spoken about. This one was a little bit worse on my hands, a little bit less comfortable to work with. I have worked with rougher cotton yarns before though, so it's definitely not the worst, but for an overall rating for this yarn, I would have to give it about a 3 out of 10. The original stitch that I was doing, I was not really able to see my stitches very well, and because of that, I went ahead and did a simpler stitch that I could easier find where I was supposed to work in so that it didn't look uneven throughout the project. I decided to go with the linen stitch because the original stitch that I was using from the book for easy dishcloths, it was a little bit more complex, and you would kind of like to see your stitches a little bit better than the stitch definition in this yarn. So between it not having good stitch definition and it not being very easy to work with, the overall rating for this yarn is a 3 out of 10. I definitely would not want to get this yarn again, but it is, as we will see when we move on to the absorbency test, a little bit more absorbent than some of the other yarns. So if you're using it for dishcloths, it very well could be a contender, but at 57 cents per yard, unless using recycled material is very important to you, I don't know that I would recommend this yarn. Now, last but not least is the Peaches and Cream Walmart yarn. This is a 100% cotton yarn as well, and it is $9.32 for a cone. There is 674 yards in the cone, making it 1.4 cents per yard. That is the cheapest yarn that we have seen so far between all of these yarns. It is a machine washable yarn, and it is rough while working with it, and it does snag a lot on my resin hook. So much so that I did actually have to move to a metal hook, and I have to say, using a metal hook with this yarn rather than the resin hook that I was originally using is easier to use. I just didn't have a Furls metal hook, so I had to use a Susan Bates hook, and those hooks are a little bit harder on my hands. So that could contribute to some of the difficulty that I had with this yarn, but overall it was very hard on my hands. It was very rough to work with. The yarn itself is very rough. It is a very strong cotton, and honestly, because of the strength of the cotton and the grittiness of the yarn, this actually did end up working best, as you will see when I show you the absorbency test for absorbency. We'll go ahead and go into that next, but before I do so, I do just want to mention that it was not bad to frog. It was the best 5 out of 5 absorbency rating out of all of them, and I would prefer not to work with this yarn, but I do prefer this yarn over the Premier Home Cotton, the recycled one. This one I would give an overall rating of a 5 out of 10 as compared to the 3 out of 10 rating that I gave the Premier Home Cotton. So overall, this isn't a terrible yarn. I would definitely recommend an ergonomic hook, and I would definitely recommend a metal hook. It could definitely make a huge difference on your crochet experience. Whether you use a Clover Amour hook or a Furls crochet hook like me, metal is definitely going to be your friend with this yarn. I do have the original audio from when I was doing this test, but trying to take out the water noise and keep my voice in, it ends up with this little hiss in your ear that's very uncomfortable to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and voice over. As you can see, after we did the first pass on this one right here, it held on to a lot of the water, and then once we did the second pass, a little bit of water started to come out, and then from there, as you soak the dishcloth, it definitely has a lot of water coming out from it. The one thing that I did mention when I was testing this is I didn't like how rough it was on your hands, but it was definitely really good for a washcloth, and that is a sentiment that I do still agree with after testing and looking at all these different yarns and their absorbency ratings. The second one that I tested is the other one that was 100% cotton yarn. I thought because this one was 100% cotton without any polyester or acrylic in it, that it would hold on to the water really well. I'm not 100% sure what the properties of this cotton are that make it so much softer than the cotton that we just worked with, but whatever it is that they do to the yarn also makes it a little bit less absorbent. So if you do want to use a cotton yarn for wearables, I highly suggest this one, especially if it's a wearable that might get wet. This cotton yarn right here doesn't tend to hold in as much moisture as that cheaper Peaches and Cream one, and it's softer, so it's going to be a lot more comfortable as a wearable. So this cotton yarn right here is a great option for like swim tops and things like that. Up next on the absorbency test is the puzzle cotton yarn that is part acrylic, part cotton. It's actually more acrylic than it is cotton. The cotton does lend a lot of strength to the acrylic yarn, so I do love that about this yarn, but it does not lend at all to the absorbency. It doesn't hold on to a lot of water, and even after I had fully soaked this thing and then wrung it out, it was one of the lighter of all 4 of the different cottons that we tested. So if you want a strong but soft cotton, even more so than the previous one, this puzzle cotton right here is going to be a fantastic option for wearables as well. Just keep in mind it is more acrylic than it is cotton. It has a lot of acrylic properties, but it does have the strength of cotton. I think this one over the other cotton one is going to be even better for things like swim tops. And of course, last but not least, but definitely least because it's my least favorite, is the recycled cotton. Now, I really did think that it would hold on to more water than this, but after the first pass through water, it was already kind of wringing out a little bit. It wasn't really quickly absorbing into the cotton. So I didn't have an enjoyable experience with this cotton yarn by working with it. I also didn't have an enjoyable experience with the stitch definition. I actually prefer all 3 of the other yarns over this cotton yarn from Premier because of the stitch definition and all that. I really think that the price point too is just not as good as the other cotton yarn. So if you're going to use a cotton yarn, go for the cheap 1 cent per yard stuff from Walmart. It is so much better and so much cheaper, and that's what I'm explaining here in this video. Like, this one is so much more bang for your buck, better stitch definition, easier crochet experience if you use a metal hook, and easier to see your stitches. So that part also makes it a better crochet experience and still more absorbent than the other 3 that we were looking at. Hopefully this absorbency test helped you as much as it helped me. I really think that this test was very important since we are testing all of these washcloths for absorbency. Hopefully this part of the video was as helpful to you as it was to me. I'm going to go ahead and move into giving you my final thoughts on all of these yarns.
Alright y'all, thank you so much for joining me. This video has been on my list that I've wanted to create for you for a while, but I've also wanted to know for myself which type of yarn is going to be best for washcloths. So I'm really glad I did this test today. It really helped me understand that even though like this peaches and cream yarn isn't the best feeling, and I wouldn't even rate it very high as far as like yarn that I'd want to use, like an overall rating for the yarn, but at the end of the day, if I were to rate this yarn for a washcloth, this probably is the best, definitely out of the yarns that we tested today for washcloths. So this is kind of the winner for washcloths today, and part of the reason why is because of its cost effectiveness. It is fairly cheap, and it gives you a little handmade touch to your kitchen. So you can make some washcloths or even some hand towels out of this because it's really going to wick the moisture away. This is going to be great for that, but it does feel stiff on your hands when crocheting with this yarn. I tried a metal hook and a resin hook, and both of them kind of weren't the best, but I definitely do think this was the best, unfortunately, for washcloths. And I say unfortunately because it hurts my hand to crochet with this, and I didn't want this to be the winner because I was like, if this one wins the absorbency test and kind of wins in the washcloth category, it's going to be very uncomfortable to finish this skein and use it for washcloths. But I can also make market bags out of it. It's a little bit less wear and tear on my hands to do chain with this, and a market bag is mostly, chains. But at the same time, it does work really well for absorbency. This yarn actually reminds me of Halloween with the orange and yellow and white. It reminds me of a candy corn. So I might make a market bag out of it that's like candy corn themed, or I might just continue making some dishcloths and save them for Halloween time too. Either one would be fine. I might make some dishcloths and some hand towels as well with this. So unfortunately, this one is the winner for absorbency today. The second runner-up for absorbency is definitely going to be this Premier Home Cotton. This Premier Home Cotton is a little less absorbent, I think, than the Peaches and Cream one. I did use a different stitch, but it was a single crochet stitch, and I feel like that would typically make this more absorbent. So the fact that it was a little less absorbent just tells me it's just less absorbent in general. I think part of the reason for this is because I thought this was 100% cotton, but I'm looking now and it's actually 85% recycled cotton and 15% polyester. So the polyester is more hydrophobic, making this one not the best. It definitely is second in the lineup for washcloths, but it still could work for washcloths for sure. The next one is kind of a toss-up between these two yarns on which one was best, but due to the fact that this one is 100% cotton, I do think this one would work better for washcloths. It doesn't have the polyester or acrylic in it, so it is going to be more absorbent overall than something that's almost half acrylic. So this one I would put at number 3 as far as work for absorbency and how it would work for washcloths. You definitely can use it for washcloths, but it is such a soft yarn. I actually really love that about this. It is such a soft yarn. I almost feel like rather than dish towels, this could be a really good yarn for hand towels, because sometimes when I'm using a hand towel to dry my hands and I'm using it often, it actually scratches my skin a lot. So even though this one isn't quite as absorbent, it might be really nice for some hand towels. That's what I would recommend this one is used for. And number 4 in this category, as far as absorbency and overall which yarn is best for dishcloths, is this puzzle cotton yarn. Now, I did rate it pretty highly as an overall yarn. I do love this yarn, but I'm now learning that there are certain yarns or cottons that are more for wearables and certain ones that do work more for something that's you want to have high absorbency, which is kind of why I don't understand why people are making bathing suits and tank tops out of cotton, because it's just gonna be more absorbent and create this heavy fabric. If you were to make like a swimsuit out of this, instead of like trying to use this for a washcloth, I feel like it would retain some water because of the cotton in there, but it's not going to retain too much, and it's not going to get heavy and weigh down the fabric too much. So this one actually might be a great option to swap out instead of 100% cotton for like a swimsuit or something if you plan on getting into the water. I really like the colorway on this yarn. This colorway is called Taffy. When I looked on the Premier website, unfortunately, there were only 4 colorways available in this yarn, and the Taffy wasn't even one of them. So hopefully that's temporary. Hopefully they continue to have more colorways of this. Maybe they're doing a seasonal change in the colorways that they offer. But I used some of this for a washcloth already, and there's 349 yards in here, so I'm not quite sure what I could use the rest of it for. I might try to make myself a crochet top that's like one of those swimsuit tops or like crop tops or something like that. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with the rest of this yarn yet, but I will say crocheting with it is very soft, it's bouncy, it's very squishy, and it doesn't hurt your hands or cramp your hands too much when you're working with it. So I love this yarn, and I'm so sad that it's number 4 on the list for absorbency, but that does present some other opportunities where this yarn can really shine. I really do like this, so I really hope to see more colorways become available on their website shortly. If you made it this far in the video, please be sure to like the video. If you know anybody who will get value out of this video, please feel free to share it with others as well. And of course, if you don't mind subscribing and clicking the notification bell if you want to be notified next time I come out with a video. I always highly appreciate all of the engagement. If you do leave any comments below and let me know if you agree with any of my ratings for any of these yarns, or if you have a favorite yarn for dishcloths, I would love if you would leave it in the comments below. I always try to engage and interact with all of the comments that I get on my platforms, especially the YouTube platform, because that is really what I want to make my home. So I appreciate you all for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.